does this serve me and my business? Or is it helping something or someone that I care about? And if the answer is no to all of those questions, then I do say no to it. Just everyone should do an apprenticeship because it's so fabulous.
And that will be in the trailer. Okay, so welcome back to the Revisited series, the series where we go back and look at what has happened since our guest was last on the Not Going to Uni podcast. The guest we have today is coming from Series 2, Episode 1, which you haven't seen already, will be linked down below. But we are joined by Grace Hardy. Welcome back to the Not Going to Uni podcast, Grace.
Thank you. It's a delight to be here. And you're hosting too.
I am. I've swapped the guest seat for the host seat. I'm in the driving seat. I've got the wheel at my hands and ready to make my mark this time. I think it's been about 6 or 7 months since you sat down and spoke to Jamie about your journey. But for those who haven't watched the previous episode, can you give a little bit of an introduction to yourself?
Of course. So my name is Grace Hardy, and I did an accounting apprenticeship for 3 years when I was 18. Then after 3 years, I left and I started my own accountancy firm called Hardy Accounting.
Amazing. I think, Grace, what I always love about speaking to you is that you are living proof that apprenticeships can work and that they don't have to be something that just sits on your CV like going to university, but you can actually use it and take the skills and really mold it into something new and something exciting and something different. So I really appreciate you sitting down and talking about that today. You mentioned in the previous episode that you were only 4 months into Hardy Accounting. We're now 10 or 11, give or take. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
And how's it all going?
Well, I'm still here. So that is a positive. Small wins. Do you know what? The business has just grown and developed along with my personal brand as well. Since I spoke to Jamie last time, I've been nominated and won awards, which is crazy to me. I've been on radio, I've been in newspapers, I was on TV yesterday. Literally crazy, because we met ages and ages ago. And I think we did a careers fair maybe this time last November.
Yeah, it was this time last year because I'm just getting ready to go back.
And I was like, I had a couple of clients, but I had loads of free time and I was able to do those things without really like second guessing. And now my calendar looks unhinged. So I'm having to be a bit more selective about what I say yes to.
Which inevitably happens the busier you get. But I suppose that's a really good tee off. As a professional, as a podcaster yourself, you have to tee these questions up. How do you be so selective with your time? How do you manage what your calendar looks like? How do you decide what you say yes and no to?
So obviously when I started, I said yes to absolutely everything because I thought everything was an opportunity, and I'm a big believer in that because it's got me to where I am now. Now I always say, does this serve me and my business? Or is it helping something or someone that I care about? And if the answer is no to all of those questions, then I do say no to it. I think it's probably the best way to go about things. I was saying yes to like calls with people that weren't serving me or my business and had something like completely different to offer that wasn't relevant to me. But I was saying yes and it was taking up my time.
Which is like, especially as you grow a business, at the beginning you're juggling every plate there is. You juggling, managing clients, bringing on new clients, trying to, manage the relationship so your current clients don't leave. You're managing marketing. You're managing your own business finances. You're managing, all of these things that require a lot of attention, and that's the difficulty of being an entrepreneur. But I think what you've just said there is totally right. If it's not serving you, your business, or someone or something you care about, it's taking your valuable time away from those things. So I think that's a really good ethos to go by. So your business has grown, as you said. You've moved up. You had a couple of clients back when you spoke last, and you've developed and you've grown and stuff. How would you say your business has grown? If you were to look at where you were 4 months ago and where the business is now, what would you say the big changes are in terms of size, but also operationally as well?
I would probably say that I put a lot more time into social media. It's how I get about 90% of my clients. And so I've put more time into that and growing my personal brand and just doing so much content creation. Like, it's actually insane, writing blogs and things like that. Operationally, it's more or less the same. I work with more subcontractors now within my business so that things can go smoothly and everything gets done. But because it's my first business, I am a small control freak. I have a really big issue with like giving something to someone else because I feel very like emotionally attached to it. And so I am juggling so many things because I'm like, no, no, I can do it. It's fine.
And I think again, you are proof that it can be done. But does it feel like it might be getting to a point now where you have to start handing some of that control away if you want to keep growing?
Definitely. I mean, it is crazy. And there's definitely times where I'm just like, maybe I'm gonna reach burnout because I'm doing too much. And it's picking projects that um are important but also generate income at the end of the day. There's so many wonderful things I'd love to do, but I also need to pay rent in London.
Yeah, which is difficult for a lot of people, even if you don't own your own business. So I really hats off to you for that because like you said, when we met a year ago and you said, oh, I've just started my accounting firm and all of this, and you started picking my brain about starting a podcast even way back then. A segue onto another thing that you're doing is you have also since then launched the Unconventional podcast. How's that going? Because we've spoken about it and I've watched a lot of the episodes, but I don't think for a long time I've sat down and spoken to you about actually, how's it going? How are you feeling about it?
Good. So obviously, I went to you because you were the only person I knew at the time that had run a podcast, and I was like, Ethan, please help me. I want to do it, but I have no idea where to start. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I just know that I want to do it. So you were so unbelievably helpful. So thank you so much. I knew that I knew that I wanted my podcast to be in person, because it's just a bit cooler. I was like, if I'm going to do a podcast, I'm going to do it properly. So I started like messaging my friends that ran businesses because I was like, no one's going to take me seriously if I go, hey, can you go on my podcast? So it started with friends. I had my mum on the podcast. That episode comes out tomorrow, which is really wholesome. And so I knew also that I wanted a sponsor because selfishly I didn't want to do it out of my own pocket. And I had so many people tell me, you can't get a sponsor for the first season of your podcast. Like, there's no stats, no nothing. Like, what are they going to do? And I was like, no, I am determined. So I went away and I got not one, but two sponsors for my first season of my podcast, which was incredible. And since it started, we're just getting bigger and bigger people on, which is crazy to me. I did my first interview with the former skills minister, Robert Halfon, back in summer as well, which was crazy. But it's been so nice that it's gone from me chit chatting to my friends to me chit chatting to important people.
100%, and it's really good to see the growth, and I put it down to obviously your kind of thirst for knowledge and real kind of what's the word I'm looking for, like passion for good conversation, but also the work ethic that you put behind it. Like you said, it's so easy for us to just jump on a call like this and chat, but actually all of the podcasts I've done in person feel so much more personal, and you get much better relationships because the struggles of doing it online. Like you can have connection issues or you can have tech issues and all of this, and then uh, someone might walk in behind you because they don't know that you're recording and all of this stuff, and it just becomes more of a hassle doing it online. What was supposed to be like the next revolution for podcasts is, oh, you're able to record them virtually. What a brilliant thing to come out of COVID. It actually took away the kind of personal nature from them, um, which is why I wanted to do this series especially revisited, but all of you guys that I'm talking to have already done a proper episode, and I didn't feel the need to, get you all the way down to the studio just for like 15 minutes of content. It's fine for stuff like this, but um, no, your kind of approach to it and really doing it properly is 100% really good to see. And looking back to when I ran my first podcast, again, I was like you, was really reluctant to do it out of my own pocket, and it's not a cheap venture. There's a lot of expenses to go along with it. Um, so your kind of grind for sponsors is really impressive, and is ended up in something really quite magical. So yeah, hats off to you for that as well, because those are two things that you've created in the last year that have really taken off, and that's a real testament to your kind of work ethic and your personality as well. So let's talk quickly about your last episode. I think, if you guys listening want to go back and listen to Grace's journey, it's obviously all there in a lot more depth. But one of the things which I picked out of all of that, which I wanted to kind of bring to the surface again, is your experience with dyslexia and your learning difficulties and stuff like that. And you touch a lot on that episode about how Mazars, where you did your apprenticeship, were very accommodating of it. Are there things which you do differently as a business owner that you put down to your dyslexia? Do you think there's something in there that you do because of it that makes you different or sets you apart from somebody else? And I suppose the other half of that question on the flip side, are there things that you have to do differently because of your dyslexia to make things make sense for you, if that makes sense?
Yeah, of course. So for a bit of backstory that hasn't that if words bit of backstory, if someone hasn't watched the previous episode, I got diagnosed with dyslexia when I was around 5. So it was very prevalent in me from a very young age, and it's something that I had to deal with all the way through school, apprenticeship, and obviously now running my own business. I think that I had a lot of limiting beliefs when it came to my dyslexia, because throughout school I got told that I was stupid and dumb and I couldn't do things because of my dyslexia. And so that was always been a real struggle for me until I started a business and actually sat down with someone else that had dyslexia. And I was like, oh, I'd love to write a book about financial education, but I can't because I'm dyslexic. And he went, are you hearing yourself? You're already putting those limiting beliefs on you. And I had said no to like writing articles and blogs and things because it was so ingrained in me that I couldn't do it because I had dyslexia. And he sat me down. He was like, you can do anything you want. There are so many resources and tools out there to help you. He was like, I've written a book just because someone said I couldn't write a book because I was dyslexic. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I should think about this differently. So I did. I started seeing it as more of a benefit and something like that I should be proud of. So in my business, we are obviously a bit more creative with ideas and the way that we go around getting clients. And that's because with my dyslexia, I love problem solving and I love thinking outside the box. I don't really like sticking to the norm. I rocked up a couple of weeks ago to an awards in Uggs because I hate wearing heels because I can't walk in a straight line. And so it's about doing things that make you stand out, not necessarily because you want to, but because that's what suits you. And now running a business, I feel so much more comfortable in myself because I can do things the way I want to do them. And so there's things that I have to have, like Grammarly, for example. I use AI a lot to help me start big emails because I get very flustered and I don't know how to put what I want into words, into paragraphs. So those are the kind of things that I'll use on a daily basis that are really, really helpful for a business owner with dyslexia.
I think you answered that question absolutely perfectly there. So I think as somebody who is doesn't struggle with the same difficulties and doesn't have dyslexia, I think I forget how much kind of put down you get. I think I experienced it not for myself, but from a friend of mine towards the end of school, and I was like, these people are saying, you said they're stupid, and it's not stupid at all. It's you just look at things differently, but we have such a typical way of looking at things being like, if you can't spell and you can't put words into the right order and blah blah blah. But all of these other things, you can't read fast. All of this, you are stupid, but you're not, because just because you can't do those things, it doesn't mean that you aren't clever in other ways, which I think is one thing that you put there exactly right. Your business is much more about creative ways of getting clients and thinking outside the box and doing things not in the typical way. And they all lead into each other. Like you said, most people, or historically, would look at you turning up to an awards event in Uggs and go, "What an idiot! Like, she's made a fool of herself there." But actually, I think now the kind of tides have changed a bit, and they look at you and go, "Well, look at that confidence. I want somebody with that confidence working on my books," um, which I think is really inspiring. And especially now, like you said, the other half of the question, the tools you use, like those are tools which everybody is using nowadays. Like Grammarly is just glorified spell check, pretty much. And what was it? And AI. I use AI every day, but you have managed to find ways to use it to your advantage, which I think is great. So, 100%. That's a really good answer to that question. Um, my final one before we move on to the quick fire questions to end up this short little episode is, what would you say your biggest area of development has been in the last year personally? Now, it could be down to a skill that you've learned or something like that, but it could also be like a personality trait. So, in an episode that I filmed today, I don't know whether it will come out before or after, but I mentioned that my biggest area of development was like just being more selective with my time, and like that's my biggest one now, and being able to be like, well, I actually need some time, like some personal time. um so it could be something as simple as that, but it also could be like, you know, I learned how to make a really good stir fry. I don't know, like what's the
I wish. I live off delivery. Um, I even get my groceries delivered now because I don't have time to go to the shop. Um, I would definitely say confidence. I've always been an outgoing person in my later teenage years. I was a very shy child. But it's confidence in speaking. So I've got much, much better at public speaking. It's something that absolutely used to terrify me. I think when I last spoke to Jamie, I'd either just spoken for the Department of Education or was about to, and that was one of my first big talks. Now I've spoken in front of hundreds and hundreds of people. And so my confidence for that has got a lot better. And also networking, used to hate networking so much, but now I can confidently go into a room and speak to people I don't know and be able to start conversations. And also saying no to things. I used to be so shy, I thought I was going to really annoy someone if I said no. And now I will happily say no and turn things down, whether that be like meetings or brand deals or an event that I really don't want to go to because actually I've taken no personal time this week and all I want to do is lie in bed, watch Netflix, and put some salted popcorn in the microwave.
that that kind of um taking personal time one that you touched on there was something which you said you were working on last time, which is great to see. You were saying, I think you mentioned something like, I worked 2 hours extra yesterday that I wasn't supposed to, or something like that, and then covered it off with, but it's fine because I'm driving up to Manchester tomorrow for 3 hours and I'm going to listen to Taylor Swift. So I was like, that's a brilliant way to look at it.
Do you know what's same? Because I'm also driving to Manchester and I'll listen to Taylor Swift the whole way. It's still something I am working on. I'm still absolutely terrible at it. Um, but I'm trying to fall back in love with going to the gym recently. So I've been doing that for the past 2 weeks. It's been interesting, but it's also making time for it. I now block out things in my calendar, like travel time, like going to the gym, which has been really helpful, but it's still a learning curve. We're not there yet.
And I think the important thing is to say that for lots of people, you will never get to the perfect amount of doing that, because everybody has the times where they, they slip up or they have a slight flaw in it where they should say, no, it's all right. Like, I need some time, but actually you'll just go, oh, it's only going to take 15 minutes. I'll just do that now. Everybody has those bits, and you're never going to get perfect. So I think it's good to see that you're still working on it. I think it's clear to see that you have worked on it, and I'm interested to see what happens when you continue to work on it. So good things to come, hopefully, from the Grace Hardy corner. coming to the end now, let's go on to our quick fire questions. Now, these questions, one sentence only, please, and try and have the answer over in 30 seconds. I don't want one sentence with loads of commas and none of that. One short, quick answer. There's only 5 of them. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm getting worried now. Yeah.
Here we go. Quick fire questions. Number 1, what do you think the biggest misconception about apprenticeships is?
That they're easy.
What is one skill you gained through your apprenticeship that you believe you wouldn't have learned if you didn't do it?
Time management.
What advice would you give to somebody on the fence about starting an apprenticeship?
Do it because you'll get your qualification, you'll get paid, and you'll get work experience that all your friends at uni won't ever get. Unless obviously they do a placement, but it's only 1 year.
Amazing. Biggest tip for balancing work and study and life, which I feel like we've touched on.
You have to prioritise. So there will be some times where you need to prioritise study because you've got an exam next week. There'll be other times where you need to prioritise life because that's what's important, especially when you're a young person in an apprenticeship.
Bonus question for Grace Hardy. What is your biggest piece of advice for somebody on the fence about starting a business?
Do it. Don't think too much about it because the hardest thing is to start.
Amazing. And final question, which I ask after every podcast, whether it be my old podcast or the Not Going to Uni podcast, what is the best piece of life advice anybody has ever given you?
Care less about what everyone else thinks about you.
Amazing. Amazing. That really was quick fire.
Yeah, I wanted it to be quick and snappy. I was worried. Was like, otherwise I'll ramble on. Such a yapper.
No, that's brilliant. That's all we needed. That's all we needed. And you put across some brilliant points there. So unless, Grace, there is anything you want to mention or anything you feel like we haven't touched on, that's going to be the end for today. But is there anything else?
No, that's perfect. Just everyone should do an apprenticeship because it's so fabulous.
And that will be in the trailer, 100%. So brilliant. Thank you so much, Grace, for coming on. Make sure you check the description of this episode because there will be links to everywhere that you can contact Grace. There will be links to all of the Not Going to Uni socials, and there will be a list of resources based off of some of the things that we have touched on today. So the final thing that I have to do for today's episode is say, Grace, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure. It's been really lovely to catch up with you again. And I hope we speak again soon.
Thank you so much.
So yeah, have a good one, guys. And I'll see you in the next revisited episode.